boys here to lead us in the pledge, John, James, and Luke. And if they'd come forward and lead us in the pledge, we'll begin this. After that, we'll begin the meeting. Gentlemen, come forward. No, not from there. You have to come all the way forward. I got it. I got it. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gentlemen, if you'll come to the microphone and introduce yourselves. These young men are working on citizenship in the community, and it's good to have them here. I think citizenship in the community begins with getting involved in your local government. And these young men have excelled many of our other citizens who have never been to City Hall. So they know where City Hall is, and they know where their government's located, and it's good to have them here. Gentlemen, if you'll introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm James.
James. Do you have a last name, James?
Chrysanti.
James Chrysanti.
Hi, I'm Luke Gruber.
Luke Gruber.
Hi, I'm John Ducott.
John Ducott. Gentlemen, it's good to have you here. We always are good to see the Boy Scouts and learning about citizenship. I know you talked to Councilmember Price about citizenship in the nation, and I'm sure she can help you there. She is the mother of an Eagle Scout. We have Councilmember Orleans, who was a Life Scout, and Councilmember DiPolito was a Life Scout. And I am an Eagle Scout, so it's good to have you here, and I hope you'll continue with your Boy Scouts and all become Eagles. Let's have a hand for the Boy Scouts. Thank you, gentlemen. Let me see if I have any fun on the agenda. Nothing fun on the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
It's all fun.
Motion by Councilmember Orleans to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? Yes. Councilmember Price.
I would like to extract item number 1 and item number 4.
Item number 1 is approval of the minute meetings. Item number 4 is a memorandum of understanding with Roswell and Georgia Emergency Management Agency. Those will be removed. All in favor of items 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, please raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Let's go ahead and get the regular agenda, and then we'll come back to the things removed from the consent agenda. So the first on the regular agenda is liaison to the Administration and Finance Department, Councilmember Kent Eigelhart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item is the approval of a resolution to approve the reallocation of the Recreation and Parks Department's remaining program year 2012 and program year 2013 CDBG allocations. And it falls under admin because it's CDBG funds that are administered through this side. I'll let Mr. Fisher give some more information.
Thank you, Councilmember Eigelhart. This is a reallocations of funds that were allocated to previous program years that we have with CDBG. We had a total of $85,206 that was allocated in program year 12 for the Adult Recreation Center expansion. That project was completed, and it was under budget by quite a bit, so we still have these funds remaining. And then also in 2013, as we were planning for the construction and the expansion of the Adult Rec Center, there was an additional $6,000 that was applied towards that. That project came in under budget, so we have these two dollar amounts that total the $91,000 that we're looking to reprogram. It would still be used in that general area. It'll be at the Waller Park extension for the picnic area and the shade structure.
This is in the Waller Park extension, not
Correct.
not down along the creek behind the gym, but in the
Waller Park
near
extension.
the Adult Rec Center.
That's correct.
So that'd be for the shade structure and the
Picnic pavilion.
Does the council have any questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the resolution.
Motion by Councilmember Kent Eichelhardt. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Price. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is approval to sign contracts for group employee benefits with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's a lot of money, but it's our annual health insurance for employees. I'll let Dan take that.
Thank you, Councilmember Eichelhardt. Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. This is our annual renewal of our employee medical insurance and ancillary benefits. As most of you know, we work through a broker consultant, the Benefits Planning Group, and that group went out on our behalf to the market and conducted a market analysis of renewal quotes for both the medical insurance and all lines of the ancillary benefits. We approached 7 carriers in the market for medical insurance quotes and a total of 18 carriers in the ancillary market. I'm happy to go into as much or as little detail as you'd like about each of those competing bids, but if, in the interest of your time, if you would so prefer, I'll go zero in on the recommendations that we have for you as a result of that market analysis. As Councilmember Eichelhardt mentioned, we are recommending a transition to a partially self-insured status with an administrative services arrangement with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia. This does represent a departure from our current fully insured status with medical insurance, and I'll go into some of the ways that we believe that will affect us going forward. We are also recommending the elimination of our health reimbursement arrangement, our HRA, which the elimination of that plan design would result in some cost savings for us and also leave us with a more streamlined approach to benefits delivery. We would have just the health savings account, the HSA arrangement, and eliminate the HRA. The primary difference between those two plan designs is the manner in which prescription medications are paid for by our employees. In a health reimbursement arrangement, as you might be familiar, employees can receive prescription medications simply by paying a copay. Under the health savings account arrangement, employees pay first dollar 100% of all costs until a deductible is met. So there is a difference in the way those two things are handled. We were a little bit concerned about that disruption, about how prescription medications might affect some of our employees with the elimination of the HRA plan. We now understand from our consultant that we can approach the delivery of those prescription medications even under the HSA arrangement by utilizing drug copays, pharmacy copays, thereby eliminating or greatly reducing that disruption that might result from the elimination of the HRA plan. Can't say this for all of our employees, but we do believe the move to the HSA would result in lower premiums. We do know that for sure. A higher city contribution to their savings account, the health savings account, versus the health reimbursement arrangement. The ability to contribute their own monies to the health savings account and have those funds be portable. They can carry them with them as they come and go from our employee. And all that with little to no difference in the way the plan design affects them personally. So we believe all in all it's a win-win strategy to eliminate the health reimbursement arrangement and focus in on the health savings arrangement. For all intents and purposes, this change is simply a financial arrangement. If we move to partially self-insured with an administrative services agreement, employees will still have an insurance card. They'll still go to the doctor. They'll still receive the care that they need to have provided to them. Behind the scenes, the bills will get paid in a different way. We'll pay for the bills through a self-insured arrangement versus having a premium dollar paid to an insurance company pay for claims. So all in all, our employees should see very little difference in the way the plan affects them. This is a change in our position with respect to the risk-reward equation. We've talked about that a little bit in committee meeting prior. By moving to a partially self-insured status, we are accepting a greater portion of the risk. We're assuming all the risk, essentially for the claims that might arise with up to the limits of the specific and aggregate reinsurance coverages that would apply. Because we are accepting a greater share of the risk, we also have the opportunity to benefit and gain the rewards. In our current fully insured environment, if we pay in greater premium dollars than goes out in claims dollars, the insurance company keeps that extra money. In a partially self-insured status, if we have lower claims, we get to keep the difference in that expenditure. We've talked before, we believe this is the best way for us to bend the cost curve back in our favor with an expenditure of ours that is spiraling out of control. And so we do think this is a cost-effective way of doing business. This is also our most affordable option. When we went out to the market through our broker, of all the opportunities that came back to us, this partially self-insured arrangement with Blue Cross Blue Shield at $5.4 million represents a 10.2% increase in our expenditure from this year. That was the most attractive financial option available to us. We've costed that out at the expected claims basis. We did talk earlier about the difference between the expected claims basis and the maximum liability that we might incur. We're hoping to manage our affairs in such a way that we don't get into those higher dollar expenditures. But at the expected claims basis, it is $5.4 million, or a 10.2% increase over our current expenditure. Finally, staff's recommendation regarding premiums for medical insurance. With all due respect, we do request that the city absorb the increase this year, with the understanding that we, staff, have a lot of work to do. As we've talked about before, the salary increase that you all graciously approved in this fiscal year will really be the first salary increase that employees have felt or benefited from substantially since 2008. You all granted a salary increase in 2012. Just a few short months after that, the Social Security tax recess was eliminated, and we had about a 2%, on average, a 2% salary increase, and the Social Security tax went back up 2%. So effectively, the salary increase in 2012 was a wash. Because this year's salary increase is the first that employees would feel since 2008, we are respectfully requesting that we not have an employee increase, an increase in the employee share of the insurance premiums this year. I said that we have work to do. We do. We have to engage in a very structured communications process with our employees. We have to get even greater participation and buy-in to our wellness program than we've had before. We've had great success up to now, but if we really are going to manage claims, we need everybody to be on board and be focused on our wellness program. We need to educate ourselves about how to be better consumers of health care. We have high deductible, consumer-driven health insurance. We need to do a better job of educating our employees about how to shop for health care and how to spend our dollar appropriately on health care. Finally, we are anticipating a move toward an 80-20% premium sharing ratio to be fully implemented by fiscal year 2018. On some of our plan designs and some of our tiers of coverage, we're already there or very, very close. We do have some gains to be made with respect to what we're paying currently for dependent coverage. Some of our dependent coverages are much less than that 80-20% ratio, more like 90-10 or even greater than that. So finally, we have proposed an increase in the tobacco surcharge this year. We do believe that tobacco use is inconsistent with our wellness message and our position as a good steward of our health insurance dollar. So we proposed an increase from $35 per pay period to $50 per pay period on our tobacco surcharge. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about the health insurance portion of the agenda item.
Is it my understanding that this is all within our current year budget? We're not going to have to really change our budget.
Yes, sir. It is all within budget.
And as I understand it, we're accepting more risk, and in exchange for that, we're going to be lowering our premiums.
Yes, sir.
But as I understand it, there is a cap on that risk because we have a cumulative amount that if we go over, reinsurance will kick in.
That is correct. We're guaranteed at the specific level, the per claim level, of $150,000. So any claim that exceeds $150,000, the specific reinsurance would kick in, and then we are protected on the aggregate at, I believe the total amount is roughly $5.6 million at the level that the aggregate kicks in.
So it's fair to say we're accepting more risk but not unlimited risk.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Does the council have any questions? Yes, sir. Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. Mr. Roach, assuming we have some savings this year due to this process, can we then in turn take those savings and roll those into our policy for next year and drive our premiums down even further? Is that a possibility?
Yes, sir. I think the plan with the funding policy that's also included as part of the agenda item is that money, at least in part, would go back to the reserve so that we're better prepared to address claims in future years.
So the better we educate our employees and encourage them to be well and have a good track record, then it continues to grow year by year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions, council? Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. And I do think this is probably the best, well, I know it's the best because it's what Mr. Roach has recommended. The best way for us to move forward. It does change in some ways some fundamental things, but it's also, and it's a big change, but it also, I think, will be the best thing for our employees long-term and the city. So I will make a motion to sign contracts with Blue Cross Blue Shield for health benefits medical insurance in the amount of $5,408,208. The standard for ancillary benefits coverage, the amount of $639,167, and the approval of self-insured group health policy and procedures manual for the period October 1, 2014 to September 30th, 2015.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next, we have Environmental Public Works Department Liaison, Councilmember Rich DePolito.
Thank you. This is approval of a resolution to adopt a policy regarding stream cleanup responsibilities in the city of Roswell. This will be presented by none other than Mr. Stu Moran.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilmember DePolito. This arose from an issue several months ago when there was debris collecting in a stream, and a citizen was concerned about that and creating problems, and we were asked to address that, to consider an appropriate form of response. What you see before you is the result of staff deliberations, discussions, and review at several committee meetings, and essentially involves classification of the issues as major, medium, or minor, and responding in different ways depending on that. For the major issues where there are trees or limbs or things that are out in the water that would require special equipment, we would propose a staff evaluation to determine both the pros and cons of doing that cleanup, what might take place if it was left alone, or what the cleanup might create. The medium and minor are pretty much follow existing practice. We have not previously had a written policy, but what you see here reflects the general practice that we have followed for 17 years that I can recollect. I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
As I understand, this is a policy regarding property owned by the city.
Yes, sir. This is strictly on city property, not on private property.
And would not apply to clean up on private property.
Will not apply to private property unless so directed by the mayor and council.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DePolito.
Thank you. Not a question, but more of a comment. We do have in here that the city will provide guidance to private property owners in the case they have an issue, and help them identify solutions. So the city is there as a resource to provide information and to provide guidance. So if that issue does come up, we can help them figure out what they need to do.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion for approval by Councilmember DePolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is approval of a resolution to adopt updated changes to the Roswell Water Distribution Specifications, Section 4.4, water mains and fire hydrants on private property and subdivision developments of the Roswell Standard Construction Specifications. Mr. Mooring, that's quite a mouthful. Will you present the item to us?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is, there's a despite the long title, there's a fairly simple change, and that is that the city will no longer allow private master metered residential communities, whether gated or not, a connection to the Roswell water system unless they obtain a permit from EPD to operate a water system. This is a consequence of a a different approach by Georgia EPD to master metered communities, and a determination that those, if they sub-meter and pass along water to the residents of that community, that they would become a community water system, and that is a regulated entity under the Clean Water Act, or excuse me, the Drinking Water Act. And so they're requiring the seller of water, that in this case the city, to certify those systems. Well, that is not something that we are currently doing. It would be a considerable challenge for us to take that on. And so we are following the lead of Fulton County, who serves many Roswell residents, in adopting this change, so that if there is a master metered system, unless they obtain a permit as a community water system, that we would not approve that master metered situation. This will provide uniformity. The policy has already been approved by the Fulton County Commission, and it will be the practice throughout the metropolitan area. So I'll be happy to take questions.
Does the council have any questions? Do we have, yes, sir, Councilmember DiPolito.
Mr. Mooring, it's my understanding that the use of master meters was actually put in place by another organization. Was it the Northwest Georgia?
The Metro North Georgia Water Planning District?
Yes. The reason that we started using master meters in the first place was because of that organization. Is that correct?
Master meters have been in place for some period of time. The policy has been to require sub-metering of individual units, so that as a conservation measure, so that if there were high consumption on the master meter, they could then determine from the sub-meters where the high consumption was coming from, where the leak is, basically.
So the district did not impose the master meter, they imposed a requirement to have the sub-meters?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Motion to approve by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're back to the consent agenda. Mr. Davidson, if you would call the first item on the consent agenda, which was approval of the June 24, 2014 council minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. This is approval of the June 24, 2014 mayor meeting minutes, approval of the June 30th, 2014 open forum mayor and council meeting minutes, approval of the June 30th, 2014 special called mayor and council meeting minutes, and approval of the July 14th, 2014 mayor and council meeting brief.
Are there any questions about these minutes? Any objection? Councilmember Price.
I've spoken to the clerk earlier today, and they reviewed the tape and recommend a modification to page 13 out of 37 on June 24th.
Page 13. So, well, I'll turn to page 13. Page 13 of 37, and which portion are you suggesting a change?
It was after review of the tape, they suggested alternative wording, because this isn't verbatim, but this is sort of
Correct.
a summary. Under the comments of Katie Ballou, about 2/3 of the way down, and it was in reference to something I had said earlier in that meeting, and she said she was sorry that Councilmember Price has people who are saying negative things and trying to bully and not be positive. And what was actually said was that Councilmember Price has received negative comments from people who are trying to bully and not be positive. So obviously the meaning is 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So they have made a note of that. so that.
So that you would changed, has people to has received.
Correct.
Any other changes to any of the minutes?
That was the most that I desired it to reflect accurately. Others are,
Do you wish to make
Okay.
a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that?
yes, please, move to strike whatever
Has
it was.
people to have.
Has people to, and replace that with has received.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Now we need a motion to approve all the minutes. One more, all right.
Number 4,
Number 4.
and I would have included 6 and 8.
No, I'm talking about on that item on the agenda.
No, not on item 1, no.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve item 1 with the amendment passed by Councilmember Price? Because I was asking for the amendment, not the approval of all the minutes. So we have a motion to approve the minutes with that amendment.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito, second by Councilmember Orlins. Any questions or comments by council about the motion? It's to approve the minutes as presented with the change approved by Councilmember Price's motion. Any questions? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Passes unanimously. All right, if the next item, I'll call upon Councilmember Kent. I believe it's Police Department, Councilmember Orlins. We'll call that item.
Number 4 under consent.
Oh, again, sorry, approval of the memorandum of understanding between Roswell Police Department, Georgia Emergency Management Agency, the Georgia Office of Homeland Security, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Tell us what this is all about.
Mayor, Council, this is a memorandum of agreement with the state of Georgia regarding the 1033 program, which is the excess property program that the federal government participates in. Military property that is no longer used by the military, it's excess federal property, has been released so that it can be used by law enforcement agencies around the country.
Does the council have any questions?
I think that's number 7.
Well, there,
Between the Roswell Police Department,
And FEMA Homeland Security.
that's number 4.
Correct.
Right, that's the memorandum of agreement between the Georgia Department of Public Safety Excess Property Program.
let's make sure we get the right one. Kay,
Yeah.
which one are we on?
We're on number 4.
On number 4.
Apparently my documents are wrong. Secret Service. Ms. Price, I'm sorry, could I ask you what your specific question is? I misread this. I was looking at the
Yeah,
1033 program.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring it to your attention earlier, but I just noticed it this afternoon, and I guess my concern in general, and we kind of breezed through these in committee, assuming that everything was in order, and most of them are renewals, and I'm assuming that when they're renewed, that means there's nothing changed? Is that fair to assume?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but a couple of them, appear to be either brand new or, new in their wording at this time. So the one I was concerned about was the one with the GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management Agency, and Georgia Office of Homeland Security, and GBI. And I guess I just want to make sure that, I know we get something for this, that, you know, they reimburse our officers for training and time. but-
Just summarize what this memorandum of understanding says, because I've already forgotten.
This is, you're gonna, this is in regards to the GTIP program.
You're going to have to tell us what GTIP program is.
It's the Georgia Terrorism Intelligence Project. It's basically a partnership between multiple agencies to share information regarding intelligence, terrorism, specifically regarding terrorism, with certain metro agencies around the state.
So it's an information sharing agreement.
That is correct.
How does this affect the budget?
It does not. It has no financial impact on the city. This is a information sharing network.
Does the council have any questions about this memorandum of understanding? Councilmember Price.
Well, I guess that was my first question, was that it said, well, this one, the financial impact was not applicable. On some of them, though, it is, and I guess we've already approved them, but my
We
question.
can cover the other ones, but let's cover this one first.
Okay, well, part of my concern is, one, sharing information. Does that mean that we share information with them, or will they share information with us? Because there's a clause that says need to know. So if we were ever to want information from the feds, let's say, would we be able to get it?
It depends on the information, ma'am. If we're asking for information that is totally outside of our purview and outside of North Metro, they would probably deny that
They're
information
not
to us.
going to tell us what's going on in Gaza?
Sorry?
They're not going to tell us what's going on in Israel,
That's right.
between Israel and Gaza?
If we request information about a terrorist plot in New York City, they're going to deny us that. But they will share information as long as it applies to us, and we do share information back to them in regards to what is occurring in Roswell and North Fulton County.
Okay, here was the line that concerned me on page 5 of 22. I really, and this kind of goes back to a conversation I've had with members in the department as well. It says the GBI will not seek or retain information about, number 1, individuals or organizations solely on the basis of their religious, political, social views or activities. And I hate to think that we are going to be so politically correct that we ignore real threats.
No, ma'am. The intent of that line is clearly the word solely.
Right.
If somebody, I mean, it's very particular that just because somebody has a specific religious belief, we're not going to target them for that. If there is other information that would indicate that they are posing some threat, then we would receive actionable information on that, and they would disseminate it.
Because I'm certain that most people would agree that, and not in this country, but in the Middle East, ISIS is both a political and a religious organization, and do they get immunity somehow because they can categorize themselves as such? I just don't want to see us fall into a position where we're not taking leads or following up on leads because we feel like they're protected.
I mean, to use your example of ISIS, their actions have far outweigh their political belief, their stated political beliefs and religious beliefs. So if something like that were to happen around here, they would not be excluded from this information. It would be based on their actions, not just solely their beliefs.
So if you received a tip on some institution or entity that possibly they were, say, storing munitions or something like that, would that be enough of a reason to investigate?
Possibly. I hesitate to answer that definitively.
Right. I just don't want us to be so politically correct that we feel like that people have immunity based on some protective umbrella that
Yes,
we
ma'am.
then,
I think the intent of this is, and I'll just say, if somebody is a Muslim, they're not gonna gather information on them simply for the fact that they're Muslim. If they are somebody who is professing a specific religion and action against the United States, then information could be disseminated about those individuals, but not simply because they are a specific religion or have specific political views.
for example, in Fort Hood, that gentleman who perpetrated a number of deaths, had been participating in a lot of activities where he was known to be a threat, and yet people somehow or other gave him a pass repeatedly. So I just really want to caution us not to be so politically correct that we miss something.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the memorandum of understanding between Roswell Police Department, GEMA, and GBI, and Homeland Security? That's item number 4 on the consent agenda. Any questions or comments from the audience? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Do we have a motion to approve consent agenda item number 4?
Approval of item 4 on the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Orleans. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Councilmember Orleans, although we have passed the consent agenda, do you have any other questions regarding the consent agenda?
Do I know, sir?
Councilmember Price, do you have any other questions regarding the consent agenda?
We're finished for now, thank you.
We're back to a recommendation for closure by our city attorney, and this is to discuss personnel litigation and real estate, all 3. Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DePolito. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes. Councilmember Price, how are you voting? Councilmember, is that a yes on closure?
Well, I did want to bring up that this is the first meeting we've had since the election of our judge, and I know we're going to discuss employment issues and other things such as that later, but I just want to make sure that if there are policy issues, that it comes into an open forum, and to express my concern about that.
No action will be taken before there is a public vote on any matter.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second for closure. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Enjoyed having you.